Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on this Friday morning after the final group game of the Europa League campaign, a 1-1 draw in Lyon, qualification to the knockout stages of European competition secured yet again for the third year in a row. Obviously, that was done before the game yesterday, but nonetheless, I think it was an encouraging performance in France against a really good opposition, and we're gonna speak through it this morning. Just myself and Jonny McFarlane. Jonny, how are you? And what did you make of the game? To me, it felt relatively encouraging and again pretty enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, another very good performance by Rangers, I would say. Very controlled, lots of lovely passages of play where they knocked the ball about and looked really, really comfortable. Didn't create an awful lot of chances, but at the same time looked threatening. And I think Ryan Kent in particular had a terrific first half. Every time he got the ball, he had the young lad Vogel on toast. But as the game progressed, obviously Lyon's quality started to tell, and certainly in the second half on the far better side. But overall, you have to say, going to Lyon, a difficult ground, even though Rangers have a very good record there, and getting a draw, given Lyon have been unbeaten, 100% record in the first 5 games in the Europa League, is an excellent return. And I think there was a number of good performances scattered throughout the team. There were a couple of dodgy ones as well. I didn't think Yanis Hadji had a good game at all. He's bang out of form as far as I'm concerned. Your lookalike, your doppelganger.
I won't take it personally, don't worry.
So yeah, but Giovanni Van Bronckhorst seemed quite happy after the game, and it's totally understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just take this opportunity as well to remind everyone tuning in to subscribe on Facebook, put the notification bell on, and that means you can join us every morning or whenever else we go live to talk all things Rangers. Right, let's talk about the team, Jonny. A number of changes made, like Scott Wright, Nathan Patterson, John Lundstrom getting an opportunity. There was a lot of changes in that team. It was still pretty strong. Take me through the people that you thought took their chance and in those early stages of the game in particular. I was pretty happy watching on with the performance in general. Thought there was a lot of good principles there from what we've seen before from Rangers in Europe that carried through. Again, like many things in Van Bronckhorst's first 5 games, maintaining good principles but refreshing them, doing little things that just improve them that little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can start to see the Giovanni Van Bronckhorst patterns now. And he said after the game quite clearly that he's very, very happy, in particular and specifically, with the way the players are adopting his philosophy. And I can totally understand why, because it is actually very different. We've talked before about the subtle changes to the Gerrard model. And yeah, it's still 4-3-3, so the shape isn't that different. But, from a tactical point of view, it's actually very different. It's very different. So you have to say, with the amount of time he's had, especially when you consider there's recovery days between games, so there's very little time on the training ground. I think the players have done magnificently well to take on board the messages of the new manager. He's clearly communicating them well, because the results are there and the performances are matching the results. It's not like Rangers are scraping by. Lyon is obviously the best team they've come up against. Of that, there is no doubt. Probably Moussa Dembele is worth more than all the teams that they've played combined so far, with the exception, obviously, of Prague in the Europa League. I'm talking domestically. So that just tells you they're on a completely different plane. But did Rangers look overawed? Did they look out of sync with the opponents last night? I don't think they did, not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. It's very impressive that it can look so cohesive early on. There is changes in terms of how Rangers look without the ball. I thought they looked far less vulnerable than in previous, the last kind of 3 or 4 away games, because they've been so narrow. And those switches of play they've looked so vulnerable to, and I thought they looked much better in that regard last night. And yeah, there's still those similar principles, but even with the ball, they retained it really well, they circulated it well. Golson plays 15 long passes in the game, a lot of which I think he found Kent 5 or 6 times with that switch in the first half, because Lyon were obviously kind of compact and sliding over. So it just looked, again, encouraging. And I think you're right, Jonny. I think that speaks to the dressing room as well. And that's something that the manager said himself, that the players can be so open to ideas, themselves putting in more work, undoubtedly given more time in the training ground, more time in team meetings, because they want to be successful together. And I think for supporters, that's all really encouraging. Let's speak a few individual performances, Jonny. Nathan Patterson came in at right back, obviously. Is behind Captain James Tavernier in the pecking order at the moment. How did you think he did overall?
I thought he had a great game. He made an error at the end that I clearly missed while I was typing up my match reports, etc., because people were talking about it, and I missed it. I must have been looking down at the time, giving the ball away in a dangerous area, so I've yet to see that. But for the rest of the game, I thought he grew into the game and got better as the game went on, especially in an attacking sense.
Yeah.
And he's got those afterburners, doesn't he? And that gets him out of so many situations, and it causes teams, even at the elite level, serious problems. That's why he's going to be a multi-million-pound transfer when he does eventually leave Rangers. But yeah, he's got rough edges. Of course he does. He's not played that many first-team minutes, but what a player he's going to be. In fact, I thought the whole defence last night, to a man, were excellent.
Yeah. Take you forward a position to Scott Wright. Derek Clark sent us a very cocky text at about 11:30 last night saying, I told you so about Scott Wright, because of course he did tell us earlier in the week that Scott Wright could have had a chance on the money with that one. I thought he was really good, Jonny. I thought the balance of the team for me with Hadji in that position looks fine when he's on form, but the extra pace of Wright was beneficial. And although it was a deflected goal, he did have that final ball in the end, because ultimately he took the shot that led to the goal, and that's what he's been missing. It's felt like up to this point he's a final ball, final pass, final shot away from being the Rangers starter for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I didn't think he was brilliant. I thought he was dangerous when he got the ball, and it did help having one of those natural winger out there instead of Hadji. I've said all along, I totally agree with Derek. I don't think Hadji should be playing on the right. I just don't think that works. He's not quick enough. He's always coming inside, and it kind of unbalances the Rangers team. Now, there's probably an argument that it opens up the space for James Tavernier, and you kind of spotted this and talked about this in your piece. And the back four become kind of back three with Bassey tucking in as left centre back almost, and allows Tavernier to bomb on or Patterson to bomb on. But I like the look of it last night with Wright there. And as you say, we all know that the problem with Scott Wright is just that end product. He's got everything in the locker. If he can find it, he'll be some player. But he linked well with Patterson. They both worked hard, and obviously he got his goal. It was fortuitous, but you have to shoot to get goals, and he took the shot from that position after, let's be honest, that was a magnificent goal. If it had been a delicious finish, it would have been one of the great goals. Ryan Kent knocks the ball through the boy's legs. Vogel runs onto it, scoops the ball over the top. Great bit of ingenuity and just creative endeavour there, just to think about how to get that ball past the two defenders and across to Glenn Kamara. Kamara still had a man to beat, showed great feet for a central defensive midfielder to beat his man all ends up, get to the byline, and then he just picks him out. And so up to that point, you're going, this is absolutely class. And then obviously deflects in, but it was still a great goal.
And you say with that, Jonny, as well, that is an example of a really good example of the changes that Van Bronckhorst has made. You wouldn't have seen that under Gerrard Kamara necessarily making that underlapping run with Barisic holding a position, as we wrote about on the site earlier this week. And I think that's the benefit of refreshing things. Teams don't know the rotations you're going to use. It's simple changes, but it keeps it fresh. And, you're right, Glenn Kamara can do that box-to-box very well. Technically, he's excellent, arguably the best technical player at the club. Ryan Kent as well, for me, Jonny, continues to look almost freed up, running at players from space, continually holding the width on the left yesterday, as you say, gave the right back a really difficult first half. In Van Bronckhorst's first game, Kent, within 4 minutes, made that darting run inside, quite resemblant of the run that led to Ryan Jack's goal against Celtic, where he chopped back on Lustig. And to see Ryan Kent make those types of moves again, I think for supporters is really exciting, because that's his best assets, and you want him dribbling at players in space, don't you?
Yeah, listen, this is the problem with the whole Gerrard era, was just whenever I saw Ryan Kent picking up the ball deep into his own half, in the half space, with 5 or 6 or 7 players in front of him, well, he's going to beat 1 or 2. But that's why you need him isolated out wide against a fullback, because he's going to beat him 9 times out of 10. That's the quality that Ryan Kent has. And it was frustrating to see him do that, and it happened all the time. But he does look liberated, like Joe Aribo looks liberated. I mean, Joe Aribo came on last night.
Yeah, great.
And really caused problems from the minute he came on. He looks like a different player. And, these two are not the only ones that they just look as if they're unburdened by all the tactical instruction. Now, it might be nothing to do with that. It might be we are overthinking it. It might just simply be a change in training. It's just what they need. It's been 3 years under Gerrard. It's very intense under him and Bio, and that change is just giving them a wee bit of a boost. But I just can't help but feel that the narrative is pulling me that it's a lot simpler now. It's round pegs in round holes, and everyone's been asked kind of to do what they're naturally good at, as opposed to a very, very complex structure. But listen, it's very early, Joshua. It's very early, and we know that Rangers came to that complex structure through failure and tweaking and adjustment and evolution to overcome challenges as they came up. So at the moment, it looks really, really positive, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has had a frighteningly good start. Talking about frightening, I see Stuart Melvin there saying absolute shout out to the Shekry boy, 18. Oh, Josh was insanely good last night, man.
He was impressive.
I mean, Borna had a good game, but that kid is going to be some sort of wonder kid. There's no doubt.
That's the Lyon Academy for you, isn't it? Right, let me ask you one more player, Jonny, and then we'll move on. Just briefly, what did you think of John Lundstrom? I thought actually he had an okay game. I thought the plan was to circulate possession in that first half, keep the ball, open up the space to switch to Ryan Kent. What did you think?
It wasn't a game for central midfield players to impress. It really wasn't. It was a bitty tactical battle between two good teams. Lundstrom gave the ball away a few times. There's no doubt. But at the same time, he did a power of unseen work, shuttling across, making little tackles, little interceptions, closing down. He really, really worked his backside off. I have to say, Joshua, I'm not convinced that John Lundstrom fits these systems as well as he fit the Gerrard ones, or we thought he would fit the Gerrard ones. I think if you're talking about a deep Lyon midfield player, you're always going to pick Glenn Kamara or Stephen Davis or Ryan Jack if he ever gets back, and that's another probably question. And I noticed there's a lot of people in the comments asking about that.
Yeah.
So my concern is, given most of the games Rangers will be playing a single pivot, where does John Lundstrom's game time come from? So I might be completely wrong with that. I'd be interested to know what the guys think, and please put your comments in there. But I thought he did absolutely fine in a tough game for a central midfield player.
I also am enjoying Crypto Knight saying, has Joshua got the Hadji look, or has Hadji got the Joshua look? To which I will take either. Happy with either of those. Let's speak about Calvin Bassey, Jonny, who you've written about on the website this morning. Another accomplished performance next to Conor Golson. Continues to look like a centre half, and it's got to the point now, I think, where it's not just that he's plugging a gap, but for me, if Balogun was available for that game last night, I'd have still wanted Calvin Bassey. And I think if you to kind of show the scale of how much he's improved, there's no chance you'd have said that after his performance away in Prague a couple of months ago at centre back. You've speculated, Jonny, that you think he might stay there long term. He said he wants to be a left back. Maybe the centre is more suited to him. What do you think?
Well, obviously, listen, and I do say this in the piece, Philip Hollander is a better central defender than Calvin Bassey. So I think Phil Hollander, when he comes back, will slot in. But if we're talking about having two left-sided centre backs at the club, I think Calvin Bassey could be one of those two. Conor Golson looks like he's certain to leave at the end of the season. I know they're still talking. I know there's still dialogue. No one's rejected anything. But at this stage, Conor Golson can start speaking to people in less than, 22 days or something like that. He can start agreeing pre-contracts. I think Rangers have a potential, rather than going out and spending £5 million in the transfer market, between Bassey, Lyon King, Nikola Katic, I don't necessarily think Rangers need to go out and spend any money on a centre-half should Conor Golson leave. Now, that might leave a vacuum in terms of experience, but I think there needs to be a pathway for talented young players. And Bassey certainly made that left-back second slot his own. And there's no reason why he can't become an auxiliary option at centre-half. Maybe Rangers don't need to carry four centre-halves because Calvin Bassey can cover both positions. The important thing for him is getting game time. So that's probably a good thing for the squad. And listen, he's a terrific young player. There's no doubt about that. And he's another one that Rangers will sell for big money. I'm quite sure of that, Joshua. I'm actually not that sure when his contract's up. I think he's got at least a couple of years left. But I think he'll be somebody that they'll want to maybe tie up on a longer deal now.
Yeah, and I think what the situation with Jack Simpson shows is that it's not easy to play centre back in this Rangers team. Especially even last night, there's times Rangers had the same 4 less passes than Lyon. If you want to go really detailed, what that shows obviously is they did a lot of the ball. They had a lot of space behind them at times, and I think positionally Bassey is just improved a lot. Also on the ball, he has that nice little drag back that he used a couple of times against Hibs to kind of break their structure and play through, which was nice. I think the thing that Golson gives you is that diagonal, which is so valuable. I don't think there's another player in centre defence that is a distributor and can distribute as effectively as that. I guess that's what you'd have to replace. But certainly at each game that you watch Calvin Bassey, I think, good age now, still malleable in terms of coaches wanting to work with him. And I tend to agree with you that I think, especially in this system, centre half might just be the right decision for him. And it looks funny now looking back at the League Cup semi-final where Rangers struggled with centre forwards, dropping off the front line, and how good Bassey has been at kind of stepping forward and stopping that. That he was perhaps the answer on the bench, but of course hindsight is a wonderful thing. Final topic before we just touch briefly on Hearts, Jonny. Ryan Jack, Aldo there asking about the injury that Van Bronckhorst mentioned last night. Obviously Ryan Jack didn't travel with the squad. Obviously we don't know the full extent of it. Must be really, really frustrating for Ryan Jack given he played recently. But it is the situation kind of goes on and on and on, and you do wonder where the end point is.
Yeah, it's a really frustrating one, not least for Ryan Jack, who will be tearing his hair out at the moment, I would imagine. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst spoke before the game to BT about what the situation was. It doesn't sound particularly good, but obviously they're waiting to see what the situation is. He's going to see and get diagnosed today, I think. So we should find out some more detail probably at the press conference at 2:30. But listen, Ryan Jack has had an injury nightmare. There's just no getting away from it. He's been out pretty much or for a large portion of last season, all of this season, and he had certainly his issues the season before that as well. You've just got to hope that he's going through one of these periods. You know, I remember everyone thought Ian Durant was finished after his horrendous injury that he got after that horrible tackle against Aberdeen. And he was out for a long, long time. I think it was 3 years roughly. He was out, and he came back, and he was a very, very, very good player for Rangers for a long time. He got over his injury problems. And sometimes that can happen. It's not always like, you know, what happened with Jordan Rossiter, where it always seemed like he was about to be on the verge of returning. And you know, Jordan Rossiter is another example. He's gone away, and I think in terms of Fleetwood, he's pretty much constant in the team and not had any problems. It's sometimes, you know, it's just your luck in these situations. And I think we've got hope with Ryan Jack, because he is such an important player for Rangers. He has been such a powerful force in that midfield. I mean, everyone knows how good he is.
Yeah.
So if he can come back, I think he just needs a bit of patience now. And I know it's very frustrating because everyone knows what he can give, and everyone knows the addition that he would make. But unfortunately, patience is all that we can do. I noticed CGM saying Durant sadly was half the player when he came back. Yeah, that might be true, CGM 55, but 50% of Ian Durant is still better than almost any midfielder in the Scottish Premiership at the time. Mm-hmm. And Durant still went on and performed brilliantly in the Champions League. You know, in the inaugural Champions League, he scored, I think, 2 goals in 6 games. A memorable one against Bruges to get Rangers back into the game before Scott Nesbitt's incredible looping, sort of weird scuffed volley lob thing. And of course, a wonderful strike against Marseille. And that was Ian Durant after the injury, performing in the Champions League. So, that's one for us oldies to get agitated over. But Ryan Jack's the same. You know, Ryan Jack, if he comes back 80% of what he was, he's still a bloody good player in the Scottish Premiership, believe me.
Yeah, and also I think the certainty you can have with Ryan Jack is he'll be working as hard as he can to get back. I think you're right to speak about patience there, Jonny, because it certainly will not be for a lack of trying or anything. If anyone wants to be back out there, any player, you'd imagine Ryan Jack will be working as hard as anyone. Just a word on the game on Sunday, Jonny. I'll be there at Tynecastle. Looking forward to it. It's a great fixture in the Scottish footballing schedule, but it's a big test, isn't it? Tynecastle away feels like the biggest one yet of the Van Bronckhorst era, but you couldn't really be going into it in a better run of form, could you?
Yeah, listen, no, absolutely not. The form's great. Outside of Glasgow, Tynecastle's the best ground in Scotland in terms of atmosphere, in terms of the way that the fans are on top of the players on the pitch. It really is a bear pit, and it'll be a difficult game. There's no doubt about that. Hearts have got good players. They'll raise their game against Rangers. They always do. They've got attacking threat. You know, Liam Boyce has been tremendous so far this season. Gary Mackay-Stevens is always got that pace in behind where you have to be very, very careful. Barry Mackay, you'll not find a bigger fan of Barry Mackay as a player than me. I think he's one of the most talented kids Rangers have ever produced in my lifetime. It's just that he's not been able to put that all together. So real quality they have in the final third. And then you've got Barangime in midfield. Who's the Canadian boy, Joshua? Remind me his name, Devlin?
I think is it not Australian Devlin?
Australian, yeah, sorry, yeah. Devlin's excellent ball winner. Second balls will mop them up all day long. And they've got good players at the back as well, John Suter. It will not be easy. But, you know, you can go to Tynecastle, and if you can get that win, that really does set Rangers up really, really nicely. And once again, if you go there and you get the win, you're putting that pressure on Celtic, who are now, as I think a lot of people predicted with Ange Postecoglou's sort of high energy style, starting to have quite a few of these kind of muscular injuries, hamstring injuries. They're starting to pick a lot of that up. You know, they're going to be weakened by the loss of Kyogo. Believe you me, I know there's been a lot of stuff about stuff on the pitch, but in terms of just putting the ball in the back of the net, he's a very, very good player. That's going to be a big loss to him. I think he's got 14 goals. So you're really, really turning the screw and putting the pressure on if Rangers get that win. Rangers are first. I'm not just spraffing on here, am I, Josh? It's 12 p.m, isn't it?
Yes, I think. Well, that's when I've booked my train for, so I certainly hope.
I'm just half sort of waiting for you to go, Jonny. Actually, Celtic are.
Oh, well, if not, I get to Tynecastle early, then
Yeah, okay.
I'm sure
that's my understanding. It wouldn't be the first time I've talked nonsense for 15 minutes in a podcast.
Great, excellent. Okay, right. Well, thanks so much to all of you who have joined us, who have commented. Remember to subscribe on the website, therangersreview.co.uk. Lots of top quality journalism coming every day that will be coming your way over the weekend as well. As I say, I'll be in the capital for the game against Hearts. I'll be speaking to you on Sunday. We'll be speaking to you on Monday. You're about to say something, Jonny?
I've got a very, very, very enjoyable to write piece that I did, guys, with Mark Hateley coming tomorrow. I know Mark's been doing a lot of video and podcast stuff to promote his book. He's got this new book coming out, which is out now, Mark Hateley, Hitting the Mark, which is, he's had a fascinating career, AC Milan, Monaco, and Rangers, obviously, and did really well at Portsmouth, played for England. So I try to do something a wee bit different, and the piece is called Mark Hateley, The Art of the Target Man. And basically it's Mark talking about what he did as a player to set him apart, how he dealt with defenders, how he ran into space, how he became so good in the air, what his tricks were to outfox defenders. So it's all about the way he played the game as opposed to the things that he did. And I think it's a really, really interesting piece for anyone who grew up watching Mark Hateley, for anyone who's interested in centre-forward play from someone who really was at the top of his game, a guy who was scoring goals in AC Milan, Inter Milan derbies, and performed brilliantly for Rangers as well over a number of years. So I would urge you to check that out.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Great. Okay, right. Well, we'll leave it there, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we will speak to you.